Wake up broken as the dust begins to settle. Eyes wide and fists
Countdown to Green, presented by Wendy's. We recap all the action from Worldwide Technology Raceway. We talk with the drivers over at the Pittsburgh Knights. And we take a look at how you're racing at home with the Logitech Show Us Your Rig segment. All that and more tonight on Countdown to Green.
'Cause we're invincible.
Welcome to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. This is Countdown to Green, presented by Wendy's. I'm your host, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. Joining me, as always, we have Alan Cavana and Blake McCandless. How are you two doing?
I'm doing awesome. To see virtual Chicago there, we've been waiting for this for so long. All the excitement going on in NASCAR this week is because of this Chicago street course, and it all started with iRacing and everybody that has building the track tonight, and we get to race it once again tonight. That's why it's such a cool synergy, and just to be a part of it is a really big deal.
It is a big deal, and I loved kind of seeing this past weekend. They had Parker Kligerman out there kind of showing the scenes and whatnot as the Nashville Cup race was going on, but really proud to be here at Chicago at a house that eNASCAR really built. There's been a lot of collaboration between NASCAR, between iRacing to make this happen, and to see it culminate in this entire week, which kicks off with the Coke Series, it's a really special time and should be a great race tonight as well.
It's definitely going to be a great race, one to watch, and I think we already kicked it off. You know, in our pre-show, we all were baconating. So if you're not baconating, you're not watching the show right. Am I right?
Thank you, Wendy's.
Definitely.
Thank you, Wendy's. Well, I'm going to sip on some of my Coca-Cola now because we got to get a look at what happened at the Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Pace car off it in. Nick Ottinger in search of his first win of 2023. Let's go racing at St. Louis. Oh, and there's contact right behind those two, and into the outside wall goes Ryan Luza. Brown and King go around second yellow at lap 25. There's smoke up the road, and it's the 18 car into the outside wall. Zelensky, and he will collect the 48 car of Bolin. And Colin Bowden is around off of turn number 2. Nick Ottinger coming in for the race lead, and there they go. They hit the access road for the money stop. Blake, they haven't burned up their tire allotment. I assume you're going to go for 4th. Pace car down and in. Restart will come with 13 laps to go. Green flag in the air. 5-6 wide, and it was not a chance that one was going to work out. It's going to be 2 wide underneath the 1, but it's not there the whole corner, right? The 14's ahead, and he loses a little bit, and I think it was just a scenario of trying to get down in front of the 31 before he could get there. 3 of Lopez, 2 fresher tires on the outside. Is that enough for the Coca-Cola Chevrolet? Green flag in the air. Minter on the outside, a little bit twitchy on his own, just tried too hard to get it off of 2. And that's not it. It's right there. Boom, big contact, second hit to the outside, and there's a hood in the grass. Big mess on the backstretch. Lopez has got 2 tires. Conti's got 4. Final turn. Conti to the back bumper, but there is no shot. The 3 goes deep. There's the contact now. The bump and run. Side by side. Beating and banging all the way to the line. And Jordy Lopez is an eNASCAR winner for the first time ever.
All right, well, you know what? That was what happened last race, but let's talk about the playoff standings. Like,
Well, and this is what that finish shapes up right here. You can see Jordi Lopez has joined the top 5. He is locked in the playoffs. As long as he can stay in the top 20 in points, he has a spot in the playoffs this year. 4 spots up for grabs for points. We'll see if that changes throughout the next couple of races. There's only 4 races left to go. And, of course, Matt Busa and Garrett Baines a little bit further back of being able to get into that playoff picture right now. But look at this battle for relegation right now. It is tight. It is close. So many drivers 15th down to 19th within just 10 points of having a spot in the series next year or not. And of course, everybody trying to make up all those spots, Alan.
Yeah, and also plenty of pride and trophy on the line on the team side. Team Dillon Esports, Jordi Lopez certainly helping their cause as they just make that gap get bigger and bigger each week over William Byron Esports. 48 points now. A little further down the last race, Charlotte Phoenix able to jump up 3 spots. Kansas City Pioneers, love seeing them jump up 4 spots. So still a good battle, but Team Dillon, they are really separating themselves on the standings.
Yes, definitely. And, it got a little messy last race. So let's talk about Worldwide Technology Raceway. What were your thoughts going in, Blake?
I think the biggest thing I took away from Worldwide Technology Raceway is the alternate strategies and how drivers, we've seen it several times this year. Malik Ray was able to implement a good strategy to get him a finish a couple of times, and you see Matt Busa was able to do it last week as well. Garrett Baines had a shot to win that race because of staying out on his older tires, and Jordi Lopez took 2 tires to win. So as we narrow in here on the playoffs, drivers are going to get more aggressive and look for a way to kind of alternate from the rest of the field to try and go to victory lane, Alan.
Yeah, and it turned out to be a winning strategy. That's what has me thinking Jordi Lopez finally has proved himself to be a true title threat. I know top 10s matter, top 5s matter, but until you get that victory, I don't see you as a championship threat, because winning is what propels you, especially throughout the playoff system that we have here in eNASCAR. So for him to put it in victory lane, that wonderful call you and Evan had, Blake, I mean, just amazing there. But for him to finally get the checkered tells me he is a title threat, because that is the easiest and fastest way to the championship, is to just go out there and win the dang race.
All right, you got to win the dang race. And we want to check in with some drivers that we're looking forward to taking home the championship this year. Let's check in with the Pittsburgh drivers. Let's have a look.
Yeah, just a bunch of great people over there at Pittsburgh Knights. A lot of great guys. And it's always cool to see other esports teams that are involved in other esports look at our series and want to get involved. And it just kind of worked out, and we made it happen. And definitely a change, but I think things have been going pretty well so far. But we hope to get in the victory lane sooner rather than later.
I feel like the new gaming organizations have some more unique kind of product sponsorships, and I would really love the opportunity to help them gain some success in the eNASCAR series.
I think what keeps me around is I found a good balance of time I spend on the sim. I don't really race too much on iRacing. I pretty much just do coach races. I test, practice, work on setups, and race. And recently, last few years, I found a good balance of time spent on the sim and time away. I think that's made it easier for me to stick around longer. And I just still love the competition. Love going out there and racing at the highest level. It's just still a good time, so still here.
I mean, I just enjoy racing. I'm doing it to do it. I took a much more laid back and relaxed approach to it than I did in the past. I was a lot more confident in my driving the first attempt, but I feel like the awesome setups I've been getting from my technical alliance, Altus, they've made up for the gap in my less serious approach to it.
You know, the past few years, we really haven't been consistently showing up with competitive cars. We kind of have those rare occasions where we show up with a good car and, you know, things happen, doesn't always work out. We've just not been consistent with our speed. And the last 2 races, Charlotte and Gateway, we showed up with cars that could compete for wins. I feel like at Charlotte, we might have had the best car in the field. In Gateway, we had a strong car as well. I think we're going to be able to get a win. I'm definitely looking at Nashville and New Hampshire for sure. I feel like things that we've learned should be pretty strong there. So the goal is just to win. Want to be in the playoffs. If not in the playoffs, then it doesn't really matter. So that's the goal.
Well, growing up, my dad was always he's a race car driver, owned his own cars, and I was just always surrounded by the sport. And he got me into it. I loved it. Always wanted to do it. Finally got in my first full-size race car in 2016 in Legend Car Racing, and just took off from there. Definitely keeps it. The biggest thing is keeping your reflexes sharp. I feel like the more diverse cars, tracks, different types of racing you drive on iRacing, the more it helps. It's just that adaptability factor is the biggest thing.
Yeah, what Lewis is doing and been able to do for years, and what Bubba's been doing recently, it's definitely grown and getting a lot more eyes from minorities. And when you speak about our series, like, I mean, it went from none to maybe one to maybe two, and now, like you said, we have a handful of guys in the series now, and it's cool to see. It's I love it. I think it's great for the sport. It's great for our esport.
At eNASCAR, we love drivers of all different backgrounds. I love to see all the diversity that the series brings in.
Absolutely. And look, as a New Englander, seeing Ryan Doucette as a modified driver, anyone in New England knows about those. So to know that it helps his modified driving, and maybe modified driving helps his iRacing, eNASCAR stuff, that's really neat, Blake.
Yes, definitely. All right. We got a packed show, but we cannot miss my favorite segment. It is time for Logitech Tweet Us Your Rigs. This is where we get to see your rigs at home. Our first one is, this one's a nice one from Clay.
Absolutely. Wood frame, got the Logitech wheel, but nice and clean. Maybe you can put a little stain on there, but all in all, very clean, good cord management.
Our next one, Blake, this one's from Ken, and Ken has his bed right next to him, ready for that nap.
Very efficient in terms of space, and also, I mean, we got football going on, so you can kind of, use the split screen. We usually see it for racing, but not all so bad to have it with football as well.
And Michael has a really big setup. This setup's long, Alan.
Yeah, I love the monitors, love the setup. It's a flight simulator and a race simulator, so you can do just about anything you want to do in this room. I love that.
All sims ready. Mike has a pretty nice, compact, but clean setup too, Blake.
We got a single monitor desk mount here, but a nice NASCAR direct drive wheel right here. So very nice and backed up right against the window.
Alan, we have this one from Pi.
Yeah, old schoolers will say that is a G27 wheel. I don't know much about that, but there's a cat sitting there. That's what I am focused on. Always nice to have a racing buddy.
We do love all the pet pics that everyone sends our way. Marisa Rowe is sending this one. This one's nice and sleek.
Yes, it is. A lot of single mounts or single monitors here, but this one's a pretty fancy setup right here. You even got the easy button right there. I mean, come on now.
When it gets hard on the track, just press that easy button. Calms all your nerves. You gotta love it. Make sure to send us your rigs. Tweet us at iRacing using the hashtag eNASCAR so we can see your rigs right here on the show. Speaking of rigs, we have a driver tonight who's in an unusual setup, not the usual setup that they're in. Matt Busa is right at Chicago street course, and he is like racing right from there. What is this inception we're in?
Well, yeah, he's racing from there tonight. He's got his rig there. I don't know if that's normally his rig, so he's got to race on some different equipment tonight. But the fact that he's there live at Navy Pier in Chicago, talk about the synergy we were talking about, Blake, about iRacing, creating the track, NASCAR, making it happen in real life. And now we have Matt Busa racing from Chicago, making it happen. So cool.
Very cool setup, and honestly kind of reminds me of the championship race at Charlotte last year. A little bit of a crowd, some lights, some cameras, but neat for Matt to get in that environment tonight, and hopefully does well with it.
Yeah.
That's going to be really cool. Let's talk about another Another person that's really cool, because Alan, that's all you could say when you found out that we have Shane Van Gisbergen here tonight for you to interview.
Absolutely. The supercar champion will make his NASCAR debut in real life on Sunday, but he is a veteran iRacer and fortunate enough to join us here tonight as he gets ready to make it into the NASCAR world. Shane, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, you're racing for Trackhouse. How did this opportunity even come about?
Yeah, well, I saw it last year, obviously with Kimmy Racing, and read what the project was about, what Justin's and Trackhouse ambitions were with the project. And yeah, I reached out through some friends. Paul Morris, he got in touch with Boris Said, who knows Justin. And yeah, I spoke to Justin end of last year about it. And he said the street race next year could be something, and he'd get back to me in the new year. So yeah, a few months ago we started talking and got a bit more serious and made it happen, which was pretty cool.
Now, you don't get a lot of practice, but you did get some practice in the next-gen Camaro yesterday. How does that compare to the supercar you are used to racing in and especially winning in?
Yeah, very different. They're it's probably the badge is the closest thing. So yeah, some things were similar how the car moves, but yeah, it's a lot heavier, this car, and doesn't body roll as much. It sits quite solid, and the tire is quite different, being a lot wider. So it was good to get a feel and understand how it is. But the Charlotte track is a bit more flowing than what we're going to see on the weekend. So and you know, a little bit more runoff and stuff. So yeah, it's going to be very challenging this weekend.
Very little practice for you at all in a real car for this weekend's race, but how has iRacing helped you prepare you for Sunday's opportunity?
Yeah, well, the later version of the track came out a few weeks ago. So yeah, of course I did as many laps as I could to get a feel and understand. And the night before I flew out over here, a few of us got on and cut some laps and did some hot laps trying to go as fast as we could. But yeah, it's good to get an idea about it all, the bumps and some of you know, the landscape of it. And then jumping on the team sim here the other day, it's very similar. So it was a good help. I use iRacing a lot, but yeah, to just get a good head start before the weekend is good.
You've done so much winning. You have such a long resume. But so do you come into this race in NASCAR with any expectations, goals, or even fears?
I guess you're always nervous about it. Like, it's a major opportunity to jump into a series like this. But expectations or goals, nothing. I just, you know, I know we're prepared as good as we can be. Getting the test or short run yesterday in the car is a huge help, just to know what I'm in for, I guess. But the way the track is, it looks so difficult with the bumps and so many different surfaces. And then there's no runoff. Like, you can't lock a brake and just run up the escape road. There's a wall there. So to be on the limit, you're going to have to be really committed and brave. And that's where these guys who drive the cars all the time, they'll be very strong.
Yeah, but some of those guys, unlike most of them, you do have some experience on a street course. How does the Chicago street course compare to the ones you've been on?
Well, some bits of surface are very similar, like the last sector. But yeah, this circuit has no curves. It just has all the apexes of walls, where we normally have a bit of curbing or chicanes. This has none of that. It's all 90-degree sort of corners and big brake zones. So quite a bit different to what we're used to, really, in Australia.
And finally, you're veteran again, iRacing. What's your favorite combination on iRacing?
Well, the supercar is always pretty good. I like driving that, but lately it's been the GT series, and the IMSA or the VRS GT series has been fun. So yeah, I'm liking the Ferrari at the moment in GT3. It's been pretty cool. And yeah, you just get on, you can race your mates, and you know, there's races all through the day at the moment that are pretty strong. So yeah, that's probably what I've been doing the most of, the GT3.
Thank you so much, Shane, for being on. I love having him involved in all of our worlds, Camille and Blake. I mean, Shane Van Gisbergen, a champion racer, iRacing as well, and he'll join the NASCAR world Sunday. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
And honestly, I think you have to give him a real shot to win on Sunday, too. I think that's the other thing. He has a real chance and a really good car to turn some heads, I think. So great opportunity for him.
Well, speaking of turning heads, we like to do that here on Countdown to Green because we get down to the nitty gritty. We go deep. And when you think of Chicago, well, you think of deep dish pizza. So let's ask some questions. And I'm going to ask you deep dish questions. You're going to have to tell me if it's a burn or a bake. Are you ready?
I'm ready. This is fun.
All right, let's go. Alan, I'll start with you. Will Bobby Z make championship 4?
I'm going to burn this pizza. Nothing against Bobby Z, but how many years in a row has he made the championship 4? The odds have to be against him, right? Statistically, he has to miss it 1 year, so I'm going to say no. Sorry, Bobby Z, but I hope you do great tonight.
Yeah, I hope. I'm pretty sure everyone's doing better than that burned pizza right now. That's just that was roasting there. All right, Blake, next question. Will a driver point their way into the playoffs?
You know what? I'm going to bake this one. I'm going to say yes, and I think the evidence is already there. We already have 4 spots. We have 4 races left, so unless we see 4 first-time winners the next 4 races, we're going to have to get somebody in on points. So I know we're kind of deep thinking here, but I think this is a pretty straightforward question. So, yes, somebody will get in on points.
All right, Alan, next one. Will a rookie make championship 4 at Homestead?
I'm going to say bake that pizza because I love what Tucker Minter has been doing in the series so far. What I mentioned about Jordi Lopez before, that winning is what it takes to make the championship. Tucker's been doing that. There are some other great drivers that have joined this series. He can do it. Therefore, championship 4 rookie. Bake it.
All right, we're baking. We're stacking those slices. The next one, we're going to see if you're going to bake this one or if you're going to burn it. Blake, this one is a past championship or a champion going to be relegated in the series.
I'm going to have to burn it. I'm going to say no. I know that Ryan Luza, Zach Novak, they're not exactly having the years that they would have liked to have up to this point in the year, but it's just such a different ballgame. I don't think these drivers get enough credit for truly how talented they are, that they can have a miserable season in the Coke Series, and yet every single time they go back down, get relegated through contender, they usually find their way back. So I'm going to say that those drivers too talented, even though they've had rough goes of it here in this next Shin car, this second year of it. I think they still have a spot in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.
All right, well, going from drivers to now the teams that they represent, specifically Team Dillon Esports. Alan, this is the favorite to win. Is Team Dillon Esports the favorite to win the championship this year?
Bake that pizza because I just showed you the standings not too long ago. They have such a huge lead in the team standings, and that's because they have talented drivers. Jordi Lopez, Tucker Minter, win, 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 win. You do that, you're going to win the team standings. Such a strong team. We don't often see both sides of a team, really carrying their weight, and they're both doing that. So yes, absolutely.
All right, and to cap things off here, to round out this pizza, see what I did there? Blake, speaking of champions, will Michael Conti be the champion winner?
Well, if he's a favorite, I'm gonna burn this pizza. I'm gonna say no, and that's not to say that I think Conti isn't capable of going out and winning multiple races until we get to Homestead. But it's a one-race championship. You got 4 competitors there. And I just don't think Conti showed me enough speed last year at Homestead for me to really consider him a championship favorite. Now, again, a lot can change, a lot can happen. And I think he's definitely the favorite to win some upcoming races in the series. But for now, it's too hard to crown a champion right now, so I'm going to say no for now.
That thing was smoking. You're burning.
That was burning. That's a pizza you got to throw away. I don't know. Michael Conti may change your mind. But let's talk about the Chicago Street Course, because this is a historic course in sim racing, in NASCAR. This is the course where iRacing was asked by NASCAR to build and then to make it an actual track in the IRL. So we got a chance to catch up with iRacing Executive Vice President Steve Myers to talk about what goes into developing a course for IRL.
So Ben Kennedy is, part of the France family, and as a younger man, he was an iRacing fan. Like, he used iRacing to help him with his late model career, and then into his truck and for many, many years and became an advocate of iRacing from the driver's seat. As he got into a position at NASCAR where he's kind of looking at where the venues are that they're going to have races, immediately he starts thinking about iRacing as to, hey, wait, this is a great platform. It was useful for me as a driver, to learn tracks and to understand tracks, and they were that accurate. Clearly, these guys have the capabilities to go and prototype ideas for where we may want to go in the future. So that's how it started. When they started having discussions about a street circuit in Chicago, and obviously Chicago is a huge market for television. I believe it's LA and Chicago are number 1 and 2 for television market. And if you look at it, I mean, obviously it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why 2 of the first kind of tracks that really made it to the real world of these prototyping projects are LA Coliseum and the Chicago street circuit. Once we went and scanned the track, Greg and I sat down and started to kind of prototype the different ideas of what we thought we could do with the space, and ultimately brought a number of ideas to NASCAR, who, kind of picked what they wanted and helped us tweak what was there. And we even continued to do that up here until, the springtime, and helping them make some final last tweaks to the track. Greg took the data and put it back into our tool set, and we'd never scanned a surface that was bumpier than that. And so I think the first phone call I made back to Ben was, I hope you have a budget to do some paving, because there are some holes in this track that are bigger than anything we've ever scanned before. But I think, it's a beautiful location. I think that's going to be really, one of the cool things is to see how television, and what's great is we showed them how to use our track tools so that they can kind of look at locations to put cameras so that they have good sight lines and good backdrops. So I think the backdrops and some of the camera shots for this track are just going to be stunning. I always felt like that this was a direction that the software could go in. I think it's so obvious to me that, here we have been painstakingly recreating tracks for so many years. It was obvious to me that we could go the other direction and help to prototype these things, and not just on the track side. I think, particularly with some of the tools that we're working on to help kind of engineers and race teams prototype their own cars and kind of use them inside of iRacing. I think we're just really scratching the surface of what we can do as a commercial piece of software to help the industry, really kind of prototype the future of racing.
What an important story. And guys, I say this without hyperbole. This is one of the most important moments really in racing history. By the fact iRacing build a racetrack proves you can race anywhere. You don't need to build another racetrack. NASCAR can go anywhere. And because of this example, iRacing can do this in other places, for other series, at places we've never seen race cars before. That's what we're proving with this race tonight and the race on Sunday.
Well, Blake, let's take a look at this historic track because it is beautiful.
It is beautiful. And by the way, shout out to the production team. I was wondering where Steve and Dale were. They're an Easter egg in every iRacing track. We saw a nice shot of them atop the buildings here at Chicago. But we're taking a look right here at the Chicago street course. Look at just how this is mapped in iRacing, all of these buildings. And I'll tell you what, I actually went in the sim and looked at where my hotel was for this weekend to see if I could get a good view of the track. And guess what? I do. So shout out to that. They've done an amazing job building this out. You could really see how integrated into downtown this is, the most important areas of Chicago. And again, not the first time we've been here in this series. We ran the All-Star race here a couple of years ago. James Davison won an eNASCAR Pro Invitational race here, but this is the first time we will be paying points in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. And let's go ahead and take a look here at a lap from our very own Garrett Maines. And one thing you can see very clearly here, of course, he's not an emotion rig or anything, but you can see even just through the steering wheel, the feedback, how violent some of these bumps are. It has a lot of characteristic here in this racetrack. He's approaching turns 3 and 4 down South Lakeshore Drive. And is going to take the right-hand turn onto South Columbus Drive. Again, this is the same street, Alan, that they'll be running on the front straightaway as well.
Absolutely. Look at that beautiful skyline you're driving into, the camera shots that we're going to see, all the landmarks. It's all right here. You can see it. I can't wait to see it on Sunday. Blake, this would terrify me if I was one of those Sunday drivers. If I was one of those Cup engineers watching this, just seeing the bumpiness of what it can do to the car. I know they have the data, but to see that through his helmet cam, that is like nothing I've ever seen before, especially in iRacing. They're going to have their work cut out for them tonight and on Sunday.
Lots of bobbleheads probably happening tonight and Sunday as well. Yeah. Well, hopefully my head's not going to bobble because we got to talk about points. And at this point in the series, I may be losing it. But you know what? Let's see where we are standing. Oh my gosh, Alan, I don't know how you're doing that, but it hurts me every time I see it on the screen. So we're not going to start with you. We're going to start with Blake instead. You're going to take a pause. Blake, tell us who's your pick tonight.
Well, I'm going to go with somebody who, again, helped win a real-life Cup Series race with 2311 Racing. I'm going to go with Keegan Leahy. He hasn't been to victory lane so far this year. I think he finally gets it done here tonight. I'm taking Keegan.
Similar with me, a driver who has not got to victory lane so far this year, but he is really good on these road courses. Bobby Zielinski, we know what he can do on road courses. Still needs that first victory of the year. Well, he's won, we've seen him win plenty of times before. So the fact that he can get it done, that's why I have my green background for Bobby Z in that 18 car.
All right, I'm really looking to my old favorite, Steven Wilson, for this one. I'm hoping that he's able to really just help me out with points. Come on, Steven Wilson. I was actually considering, I think I may have the community help me with my pick. I may be tweeting out a poll for next time, regardless of how it goes tonight, but I'm hoping that I'm coming for your points, Alan.
Hey, Wilson won the All-Star race, so that's a great pick. He's won here before in Chicago.
Yes, that is true. We're going to have to see if it's going to be a great pick tonight or whose pick will be the best or if we all got it wrong. Because guess what? The race is starting just after this break. Thank you for joining us right here at Countdown to Green presented by Wendy's. And stay tuned because the race starts right after this.
I need to try it first.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, so come get that Baconator.
Give me one honk if you want a Baconator.
Yeah, give me 2 honks if you want Tyler to make it.
Go night mode. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's Baconator.
This is our series, where the stakes are always higher, where virtual meets reality. This is the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.
Yeah, look at my shine with the glow. This is my time with it though. This is my time to be way at the top. Me and my guys gon' pay out the block. I don't look like Paul. Time's right, and I know the scenes walking in a limelight. Coming super when I watch like a sci-fi. My guys are high risers, high time. Might drown if you come to my side. I pledge allegiance for lifetime. My squad connected like Wi-Fi. We grind and you see the highlights. This my life. It ain't a game now. Me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way. You wasn't invited. Say you wanna play. I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me. Don't step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way.
With just 4 races remaining in the regular season before the playoff grid is set, there is simply no margin for error if these drivers wish to fight for a title. Isn't it only fitting then that we approach the streets of the Windy City where just one foul move can perhaps end your night? As the 40 greatest sim racers in the world strap themselves in, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the house that eNASCAR has built as we are downtown at the streets of Chicago. I'm Blake McCandless, joined along tonight by Alan Cavana. And Alan, I know we've talked about it a lot in pre-race, but so much riding on this race, but we are also just a couple races out before we set this playoff grid. It's an important big night for these drivers.
Absolutely. You mentioned no margin for error. This track we are racing tonight has some of the tightest tightest turns that we have in the entire series. So there is no margin for error coming off some of these corners. And with the playoffs just around the corner, I still maintain it is a huge opportunity for someone tonight who figures it out, because a win gets you in that playoff. Most likely, then you're chasing a championship.
Not the first time that we've seen the Chicago Street Course in this series. Again, it was an all-star race a year ago that was won by Steven Wilson. The 2021 eNASCAR Pro Invitational Series used a prototype of this racetrack that has since been updated. Steve Myers talked about it a little on Countdown to Green as well, that there have been some small tweaks and changes to the iRacing track itself before we get things rolling tonight. But, Alan, I also have to give a shout-out to Steve Myers. I wrecked him in a hosted session last week, and he didn't fire me. So, I'm pretty happy about that.
You wrecked the boss man. That is big of you, Blake.
He turned across my nose. Let's just put it that way.
Hey, look, Tony Stewart said he would wreck his grandma. I get it. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do for a trophy.
Hey, maybe he thought it was Evan that wrecked him because he's not here tonight. Celebrating a Stanley Cup victory takes a couple of weeks, I guess, for Evan. So we wish him well. Can't wait to see him back here. But nevertheless, going to be one exciting race tonight at the Chicago Street Course.
Absolutely. And with so much on the line, the Chicago Street Course, the way you put it, Blake, I mean, the course that iRacing built, to know how big this week is, to know how much is on the line tonight and how it's leading up to the race on Sunday, and to know that we have one of our racers live in Chicago tonight, Matt Busa. We're going to catch up with him soon, that he is at Navy Pier racing this race from Chicago. It's all coming together just like they planned.
That it is. As we take a look at the starting grid, it'll be Steven Wilson on pole for Stuart Haas. He takes the top spot alongside Parker White. Tony Kanaan well represented here on the front row. Back to row number 2, Bobby Zielinski, multiple-time winner on road courses in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. William Byron Esports' own Nick Ottinger will start from the 4th spot. Going from 5th tonight will be Garrett Lowe for Jim Beaver Esports, and Tucker Minter, 2-time winner this year. He'll start 6th for his Team Dillon points leaders in the team standings. Back to row number 4, you see Casey Kerwin for XSET Gaming, along with Dylan Duvall for the other Stuart Haas entry. Both of those represented in the top 8. William Byron Esports' own Matt Busa and Michael Conti for Junior Motorsports will round out your top 10, Alan.
In row 6, we have Jordy Lopez, last week's winner, the last time we were on track, alongside Jimmy Mullis for Ride Sports. Row 7, we have Timmy Holmes for RFK, and then Graham Boland out there for Charlotte Phoenix Racing on the outside. Row 8, Caden Honeycutt, joined by Letarte Racing's Dylan Alt. And in row 9, we have Wyatt Tinsley and alongside Garrett Maines for FGR Excel. We saw some great in-car video of him earlier on the show. Colin Keister on the inside of row 10, next to Donovan Strauss of Williams Esports. Blake?
That'll round out your top 20. Back in 21st, you see Michael Cozy Jr. He's going to be racing a Spec E30 a little bit later on in the summer, so shout out to him, along with Junior Motorsports' own Kevin King will start in 22nd. Going from 23rd, Rise Esports in former series champion Zach Novak, starting next to Daniel Falkingham for JGR in the Interstate Batteries Toyota. Starting 25th, Tony Kanaan's other driver is Tyler Gary. Elliott Sadler Esports' Cody Bias will roll off from the 26th starting spot tonight. 27th is Ryan Doucette, who we caught up with a little bit earlier in the show. FGR Excel's Joey Brown is 28th. 29th and 30th, respectively, going to go to Jim Beaver Esports' Malik Ray and Brendan McKissick for Letarte, rounding out your top 30.
Row 16 getting back there, the number 69 of Colin Bowden for E-Racer, starting next to Ryan Luza, representing the set, repping the set. Row 17, Vicente Salas and Derek Justice on the outside in the number 31 car. Row 18, Keegan Leahy, that's Blake's pick for tonight. We have to find out the story there, starting next to Michael Guest, the 2311 cars. Making up row 18, not what you want to hear. Row 19, Derek Bordeaux and Corey Vincent on the outside. And then finally, in row 20, we have Alan Bowes and Femi Olot bringing up the rear of the field, seeing what they can do here at the Chicago Street Course. Some surprises there in qualifying, Blake, let me tell you.
When it rains, it pours, I guess, Alan. As we go through the starting field, we're going to catch up here with our pole sitter in Steven Wilson. Alan, I believe you got him on the dial.
Yeah, Steven Wilson, someone who knows something about leading and winning Chicago Street Course. Steven, how is this race different from last year when you won the All-Star race?
Well, the difference this year is that I didn't need an 8-car invert after qualifying to be up front. This year we put it on pole, had an okay lap, gave up some time, but it was good enough for the pole. I felt confident about that pace all week, pretty much coming into this. So I think we can get it done, hopefully, for the Smithfield and Storehouse guys. And just want to give a shout out to all the family watching and hoping to bring it home.
Familiar faces right behind you, Bobby Zielinski, Casey Kerwin. Again, how we saw it play out last year. Are you a better driver than last season?
At this track, yes. I would say I've definitely prepared more for this than last year's All-Star race. So, yeah, but Parker and Bobby, they're definitely two drivers who are going to race me really close. But the goal is just to be in the lead after turn 1, and hopefully that clean air will help me pull away.
Steven Wilson, a lot on the line as we look toward the playoffs. Good luck tonight from the pole. You're in great position.
Thank you, boys.
Iowa City native will roll off from pole tonight as we continue to make the rounds here in the last few pace laps just before we get things going here. Crossing over the bridge, we'll take a look at our Wendy's race analysis.
Yeah, the race length, 40 laps, 85.6 miles. Pit road speed, 45 miles per hour. You can see the pit lane time there, 26 to 30 seconds. 3 sets of tires available. Estimated fuel window is 18 to 22 laps, so we know they got to come down for fuel. And just watching these pace laps, Blake, it's such a narrow track. They're having trouble getting through on pace laps. I can't imagine when they're hitting full speed trying to race this track. We've seen it before, but that was an all-star race. This is with the trophy, positions, points on the line. That's a different feel than an all-star race.
Certainly going to make for some interesting moments tonight. Again, no caution flags will be thrown in this race that is also utilizing fixed setup, so everybody in the field on a level playing field for this one. As the pace car going to make a hard right-hand turn, the field will work its way onto South Columbus Drive. Green flag is in the air as we say, let's go racing from the streets of Chicago. And already Bobby Zielinski on the inside, 3 wide. He wants the clean air. Are they going to make it out of turn number 1? It looks like for the moment they do, but Wilson falls back to 3rd. Parker White, Tony Kanaan, he has the lead off of turn 2.
What a move to start this race as we get to this long straightaway. High speeds here, but for Parker White to get the lead so early as we dive down here, this is where it gets really tight coming off this corner. This is a race about track position. What a start to get those positions early on, Blake.
An amazing start. He had to time that one well on the outside to get a jump on that one. You can see still Steven Wilson does not get the clean air that he desperately wanted as they make the hard left-hand 90-degree turn from South Columbus Drive onto East Balbo Drive. And Parker White will lead them here. What is probably one of the tighter sections. You were talking about them going too wide, Alan, under pacing. Well, that got sorted out relatively quickly. You're not going to see a whole lot of too wide through some of these corners.
No, and look at this shot here as we go around through Grant Park. That corner, the left, the right, and then the right, and then these hard turns. They're almost all 90-degree turns at this track. It's something different, and we know how bumpy it is. We saw that in the pre-show. All these drivers experiencing these bumps right now. Got the latest version of the track not too long ago, so these drivers have had to practice, learn this new track, and early on in the race, it's Parker White taking full advantage with Bobby Zielinski right behind.
Now remember, this track was scanned several years ago, so the bumps have been worked on the streets of Chicago since the laser scan was done to put all of these streets into the sim, and even some tweaks to the track itself has been done since we were last here at both the All-Star Race and the eNASCAR Pro Invitational a couple of years ago, as making their way out of turn 5 right now. And Alan, this is going to be your best passing opportunity, this long straightaway down South Columbus Drive into a hard braking zone, 90-degree left-hand turn. This is going to be where if you are going to see some passes, this is going to be your best chance to do it.
It's going to get more and more interesting throughout the night to see the courage factor. Who has more courage and lug nuts, if you will, to send it in there and break a little later when some of these passes need to be made by the time this race is over. This is an interesting perspective for Steven Wilson. Last year, leading this race in the All-Star race, trying to be the defender, if you will, and fend off everybody behind him. Now he's the chaser as he has lost a few positions early on in the race, has to get those back to see if he can win this race.
We heard on pit road that Steven Wilson, as you can imagine, very upset with himself after turn 1 and losing that spot. We cannot repeat exactly what he said, but you can rest assured he was not all too pleased there with losing the lead down into turn number 1. As we take a look a little further back in the field, this is Jimmy Mullis, Alan. We talk about Rise Esports. They have been killing it when it comes to these paint schemes all season long. Another great one here on the streets of Chicago is the Midland, North Carolina native. Will turn right into turn number 2. Jimmy Mullis, very accomplished road racer in himself, running in 13th for now.
Yeah, one of those drivers I believe needs a win on the season, and then we've seen him come close, right at the end of a race a few weeks ago. Wasn't able to finish it out, but still needs that victory. I think if he wants to have any hope of making the playoffs, so Jimmy Mullis can concentrate in there. I love these in-car shots that we get, especially down this straightaway. Look at that view, Blake, of the skyline of Chicago. This is what we'll be seeing on Sunday. This is such a neat aspect, unique racetrack that we've never seen before, in the real world, and now we get to see it here once again in iRacing, and to know that they've been the synergy between those two. These are such beautiful shots and a great racetrack as well.
Fantastic scenery, but again, is such a challenge for these drivers. I was talking to Anthony Alfredo this past week in the Xfinity Series garage, and what's kind of the main theme going into this race was just the lack of a margin of error at this racetrack, that you barely miss your braking zone. You barely step on it just a little too hard when you get back onto the gas. This track, you can see how tight it is, the concrete walls on the side. It's very, very unforgiving. And so these drivers, it may look like they're single file right now, but every single corner, you can see how close they get to the wall, and just the slightest mistake could end up in the end of their race. So a good job by these drivers who have really gone through without incident. We haven't seen any crashes so far in these opening 4 laps, and I think that just goes to show you how talented these drivers are.
Absolutely, and there's a level of patience you have to bring to a race like this when the track itself is what you should be racing, right? You talk about the dangers, you talk about how narrow it can be. You're waiting on others to make a mistake, and if you can capitalize on that, that is your way to track position. Those are the easiest passes to make when others can be forced into a mistake and you can capitalize. So the fact that you can keep it clean right now, we're seeing most of the drivers doing that, but they're waiting in position for the driver in front of them to maybe miss that corner, maybe miss that braking point, as you talked about with Anthony Alfredo. The fact that that can happen. Good battle here with Jordi Lopez, the latest winner in the series, chasing down Michael Conti, who's won plenty in this series as well in his final year. Great battle here on the Chicago street.
Great battle. Let's listen in here as Jordi Lopez tries to make up a spot on Michael Conti. Got to tell you what, there is no love lost between those two drivers. Remember, they were side by side, nearly glued to one another at the conclusion of Worldwide Technology Raceway. Jordi Lopez, of course, got his first eNASCAR win, but you can see he's able to make the move by as Garrett Maines, Jimmy Mullis, a little bit of contact here as they go through East Congress Plaza Drive, and this is probably the hairiest part of this course. There's a big bump there in the middle of that corner as now Dylan Alt, Jimmy Mullis make a little bit of contact as well.
All right, so patience lasted about 4 laps, and then we saw that battle between Conti, between Jordi Lopez. It packed everyone up behind them and made this pack that we're seeing now really get racy here, but you have to take advantage when you can. That's what we were talking about in terms of the opportunities at this track. They'll present themselves, but not when you see them, you have to take them, because this can be such a track position race that taking advantage of the opportunity, maybe a little earlier than you want to, you got to force it at times at this track.
Well, we know the track position, all these drivers talking about how important just getting a little bit of clean air will try to be, but I think that's a good litmus test of how difficult it can be, or perhaps how hairy it's going to be if some of these drivers are going to go side by side throughout some of these corners. As further on back in the field, you can see Colin Keister, Wendy's Chevrolet, well represented here by eRacer. Didn't quite have the run he wanted back at Monza, but I tell you what, shout out to Wendy's, sent us some Baconators before the race, so definitely able to enjoy that.
I think that's what we're looking at, bacon. We've seen some bacon paint schemes before, but this is a nice new one tonight for Keister and the Wendy's car. So yeah, needs to up his road course racing skills just a little bit. But this is a street course. This is a whole different animal. Blake, you know better than us, than many of us, talking, making laps around these different tracks.
Certainly the case. You can see Colin Keister a little further on back in the field. Has a little bit of clean air in front of him. As a little bit of smoke further on up the road, perhaps from Graham Boland, Dylan Alt, and Donovan Strauss, a trio of drivers that have kind of found themselves nose to tail just outside of the top 15 here. Another great paint scheme right here. Jimmy Mullis, we talked about his. Zach Novak, I don't think that needs any explanation here, Alan, with the scheme that Zach Novak has. Obviously a callback to Jeff Gordon, and probably one of the most iconic paint schemes that there is in NASCAR. So yet again, another marvelous job here by Sunoco and Rise Esports allowing this to happen.
Yeah, the Rainbow Warrior at the Chicago Street Course. Two things you maybe never thought would happen, right? Seeing that paint scheme again and even racing at Chicago. So the mixture of the two is pretty interesting. I was looking further down the standings as we watch Zach Novak you can see that hump there in the track. So many unique parts of this racetrack, not even going through the city and the different parts of Chicago. Just getting a feel for all this. I was just keeping tabs on Keegan Leahy. Blake, he hasn't made up a ton of positions for you quite yet, but we know he has the skills to at least make them up, but it's going to be a long battle from back where he started.
Well, again, in iRacing qualifying, it's the case if you're out there just running any official session, or it may be the case here in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series as well, is that any incident point, whether that be scraping the wall, running off track, which, well, you can't do that here. There's really no off track. There's no runoff here at the Chicago Street Course, but if you do make those mistakes, it will nullify your lap. So I'm sure that's what befell Keegan Leahy tonight, and with the fact that there are no cautions to slow this race down, definitely going to be tough for him to try and make up that ground. As you can see, the other VRS Toyota up here. This is still the battle up front. Not a whole lot has changed. It is still Parker White looking for his first eNASCAR win up front. Bobby Zielinski and Steven Wilson, your top three. And of course, if you want more updates on everything going on in the eNASCAR world, you can scan the QR code on the right-hand side of your screen. And of course, you can sign up to begin your iRacing career today and hop on the Chicago Street Course and try it yourself before the big boys tackle it on Saturday and Sunday. And of course, for more information on the series and everything going on here as we close in towards the playoffs, you can log into eNASCAR.com or iRacing.com/eNASCAR today. And you know, Alan, I'm honestly on that website right now, and I think one thing that really shakes up everything with this playoff order is the fact that if you go to that website, you'll see that Parker White right now sits 11th in the standings, would not be in the playoffs, but of course, by virtue of him running up front, at least by the live standings, he's in at the moment.
Win and in. I mean, that's the easiest and simplest way to make a playoff and a championship run. I'm loving this battle, though, because as much as Parker White, as great as he is doing, he has not made that big of a gap on Bobby Zielinski, a proven winner. And I have to apologize to Bobby Z. I just made a simple mistake. I forgot about his earlier wins this season, so I don't want to diss his resume whatsoever. Normally he's in that beautiful green car, and we're already seeing some stops here, Blake.
Well, we talked about that fuel window. I think it's a little larger than what we perhaps would have anticipated. As you can see, a couple of drivers are going to stop, get 4 tires. Some, I imagine, may just stop on fuel. But Alan, I think this is kind of interesting here that once these drivers can make it all the way on fuel, they feel pretty safe that they can come down here, get a little bit of clean air in the back of the field. And I think that's exactly what Colin Bowden and a couple of other drivers have the thinking.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out, but it's clear these drivers may have learned something if they can be in and done and not have to come in again, or perhaps On Sundays, sometimes we see the value of tires and how fast they can be. We do know they have 3 sets tonight. Hitting it can obviously set you back a little bit, but different strategies that we're already seeing with some of the teams in the back of the field right now.
I remember I was crew chiefing James Davison when he won this Pro Invitational race at this racetrack a couple of years ago, and that was definitely a thing that as soon as that pit window opened, which granted these tanks here in the next-gen car a little bit larger than what we had back then when it was updated in iRacing. We got the full 20 gallons in the fuel cell that these cars possess. So you go a little bit further on fuel than I think what we did back a couple of years ago, and the next-gen car was still being fledged out. But we'll don't imagine that any of these leaders will take that opportunity to do so early on. As you can see, Nick Ottinger, Casey Kerwin, a couple of drivers trying to hang on to your top 3 right now, and Allen doing a pretty good job of it. Thought that they would pull away, but at least the gap for right now is still about 3.5 seconds or so that you could see throughout your top 5. So we have a decent little race on our hands here.
Yeah, that's what's impressing me is that, yes, Parker White was able to get out to the lead, and Steven Wilson mad at himself for letting that happen on the start, but the gap, not that far. Everyone's still within striking distance, at least the top 3. So for Bobby Z to still be in that position, to see the leader, to still have a shot, 10 laps into this race, it's honestly a lot closer than I thought it would be, only because of the advantage that clean air, that clean track position in front of you can give you. So it makes me wonder what Bobby Z has under that hood, what Bobby Z has holding the wheel right now, because keeping it clean and keeping it patient is the name of the game. You got to get to that last lap before you want to make anything too big of a move.
Quarter distance down here at the Chicago Street Course, and a first-time rookie is up at the front of the field. Parker White leads us from the streets of Chicago. We'll be right back.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, so come get that Baconator.
Give me 1 honk if you want a Baconator.
Yeah, give me 2 honks if you want Tyler to make it.
Go night mode. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's Baconator.
There's a thin line in the NASCAR Xfinity Series between winning and losing, between being the future and being past, between headlines and tailspins, between making history and being it, between the sweet taste of victory and the fumes of defeat. In the NASCAR Xfinity Series, there's a thin line between being a name they know and being a name they'll never forget.
The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. By Logitech G. Through design, engineering, and a love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And by Wendy's, if you're not baconating, what are you doing? The Baconator's got 6 strips of oven-baked bacon and a half pound of fresh, never frozen beef. So yeah, go grab a Baconator today and choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Beautiful scenery here at Chicago up front. Not much has changed since we stepped away for a moment. Still about half a second separating your top 2. Steven Wilson also a part of this bunch as well, but starting to lose a little bit of ground. But your top 6 within at least 5.5 seconds of your race leader. White, Zielinski, Wilson, Ottinger, Kerwin, and Tucker Minter right now, your top runners.
Not sure if there's any real surprises in that top 6, other than Parker White being the rookie leading as is. But what do you think, Blake? It seems like the cream rises to the top at a track like this.
Certainly does. I know Parker White, he was my pick to win when we were back at Monza. I thought Tony Kanaan Esports, it just has a certain ring to it that perhaps that may be what Parker White needed, but he gets out front here, qualifies very well, and he's one of the more accomplished road racers that are a part of the service in general. Again, his road iRating is over 9,000, which if you're not familiar with iRating, there's probably only about 10 out of, I don't know, the hundreds of thousands or so of accounts that have registered with iRacing that have that marker. So Parker White, one of the best in the business when it comes to these road courses, and showcasing those skills right now in front of what we've come to know in this series, Alan, and one of the best to do it in front of Bobby Zielinski. As you can look back here a little further on back, Donovan Strauss leading a line of cars with Timmy Holmes, Stack Novak, and Ryan Doucette right here just in front of the top 20.
Great in-car here from Timmy Holmes. As you see, just again, how tight this track can be. As it looks like you're driving right into the city, Blake. I mean, it's just the greatest visuals here. And because we have a lot of high-speed straightaways, and then it goes into tight, hard brake, hard right turn here, and gets very thin coming off that corner. You want to carry as much momentum as you can, but it gets so thin that it can get dicey down the long straightaway. And then hard on the brakes so you make that turn. I think that was turn 1 we're looking at. On the gas again. It's just such a unique place, being on a street course, being in the middle of the city of Chicago. You have the bumps, you have the hills. Such a different track than we're ever used to seeing. Even we were at Monza earlier this year that we hadn't really seen in the eNASCAR series, of course. And that's a world-renowned track. This is a street course, different for this schedule. So fun to see.
It is certainly very different. We see Ryan Luzzi, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, he's down in the pit area. Joey Brown is currently scored 10 laps down. So we'll try to follow up on that and see if we can't figure out what happened there to the FGR Excel entry. Hearing from Bobby Zielinski, quote, "I could be so much faster if I was in clean air." So he feels as though he's being held up. As you can see, Cody Bias letting on by. So, Alan, I'll pitch the question to you. So, Zielinski, he doesn't have clean air right now. How can he try and get it as we kind of approach the halfway point? I would think that you'd want to pit a little bit earlier, but if you do, you're going to come out in probably more traffic than where you're at right now. So, I don't know if there's many options available for Bobby Zielinski.
And that's something crew chief, spotters, what have you, friends have to weigh, because you want to be the first to pit last, right? You want to undercut the leader to see if you could possibly make the pass on pit road. You can get aggressive, but you can only get so close if he thinks, being not in the clean air is what's keeping him, that air bubble, if you will, is really preventing him from getting up to Parker White. We're seeing that gap grow just a little bit. It was around 0.4 seconds, grown to about 0.6 seconds. That's got to be tough for Bobby Zielinski because he's been staring at the back of Parker White now for 15 laps. The best way around would be to make a pass in the pits. That may take some strategy. You got to guess the right lap and hopefully jump onto pit road one lap before Parker White does.
You can see on the right-hand side of your screen, Matt Busa taking things in. He is on location tonight. He's been a part of many of the different goings-on when NASCAR has been a part of announcing this race and being a part of everything going on tonight, as well as he is live downtown in Chicago, as we'll take you around here on the Chicago street course with the Logitech onboard camera. Great shot here down South Columbus Drive. We talked about the long straightaway down into turn 6, and the toughest area to get around this racetrack, Alan. I was doing a couple of laps myself just to kind of get ready for the broadcast, and the first, I think, 3 times I went into turn 6, I didn't make it out. So it took me a little bit of time to get used to it.
That's why these 40 are the best of the best. But I love that shot of Busa. Again, running live at Navy Pier in downtown Chicago right now. On a different rig that he's not used to running on, with a crowd around him. You don't know how you might react to that. We saw that last year at the championship race down at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. That element, Blake, of having a live crowd, having people watch you, eyeballs on you, that is different than when you are racing from home on a rig you are very comfortable. So for Matt Busa to be running where he is right now, kudos to him, because it's a widely different element. And then you throw in all the troubles this track gives as well. As we look back at the battle toward the front, Bobby Zielinski still trying to chase down Parker White.
I think that experience is very important. I remember talking to Graham Bolin last year before the championship race in Charlotte. Remember the Charlotte Phoenix put on kind of a head-to-head event with their drivers that at the time was well, it wasn't Femiolite. He's on the team this year, but Graham Bolin took part in that event against Briar LaPrade and Michael Conti, Junior Motorsports, and Graham kind of talked about how competing in that environment was a great learning tool for eventually making his way to Charlotte at the NASCAR Hall of Fame and trying to handle the pressure of winning $100,000 live on a stage. So a good opportunity for Matt Busa, not just to be in a live environment, but one with a lot of eyes on it as the industry kind of turns its focus to Chicago over the next couple of days. As we look back to 8th and 9th, Dylan Duval having a great run right now, up in the top 10 for Stuart Haas, and of course last week's winner in Jordy Lopez, someone you dubbed as a potential title favorite a little bit earlier on, running in 9th.
Yeah, he showed me he can do it by getting the victory, Blake, because we know how the system works. We know how making the playoffs, the easiest way to do it, not the easiest, but the simplest way to do it is by securing that victory off it and putting yourself in position and then winning a championship. The same thing. Yes, consistency is important, but getting those checkered flags is the simplest and easiest way to secure your championship 4 spot. Jordy Lopez showed us he can do that, getting that first victory. What an amazing call that was when you called him home to the finish line, but proving that he can get that victory showed me a lot and finally let me put him in that list of potential title contenders this year. Even tonight's race impressing me, passing, hard to come by. We saw what he did earlier with Michael Conti. Now he's trying to drive down Dylan Duval and make another spot. One spot at a time. You have to be patient, but you also have to be aggressive at some point as we're approaching the halfway mark.
Definitely are. I think Jordy Lopez Jr. was talking earlier on social media a little bit earlier today just about how physically taxing this race was going to be. We talked about Garrett Maines and the onboard that we presented to you guys in Countdown to Green presented by Wendy's about how rough this ride is on this racetrack that, again, has been smoothed out in real life since this track was scanned and put into the sim. So it's probably a little bit worse for these drivers than what the NASCAR Xfinity Series and NASCAR Cup Series is going to be experiencing here in a couple of days. But nevertheless, these 3 are up for the task, and see how focused they are as right now all eyes are set on trying to find a way or find some way to get a mistake out of Parker White. The bad news for Parker White, though, I think, Alan, is that in the next couple of laps or so, of course, they have the opportunity to pit, but lap traffic, I would imagine, at some point is going to come into play.
Yeah, they'll have something to deal with coming out of the pits. They'll have lap traffic at some point the way they're running. I'm looking at the time. We saw some of the drivers pit already. The timing hasn't showed me that tires are much of a factor, right? So the fact that they're still out there in this clean air, relatively for most of them, and driving away when they can, when they have the speed, that's the strategy to be doing right now. Now, if you're second with Bobby Zielinski, you're third with Steven Wilson, it's all about figuring out the strategy to get past Parker White. If you can't do it on the track, it's when do you pit? Can you snooker them, as we might say on Sunday? We've seen it. Crew chiefs try to make a call. Maybe it's late. Maybe it's a late pit call to pull your driver in 1 lap earlier than you think Parker White's going to come in. Maybe that's the way to jump them in pit road and then get the position on the racetrack.
Definitely no place to do it. And, Alan, I don't think I'm surprised at all to see this driver. Well, he was in 5th. He now moves into 4th as Nick Ottinger makes his move down into the pit area. And that's Casey Kerwin. And Kerwin is pretty adamant about the fact that, well, guess what? His favorite track is Long Beach. If you are part of the iRacing community and you watch his streams at all, Long Beach, which I think has a lot of parallels when you talk about this racetrack. You know what Shane Van Gisbergen was talking about, not a lot of curbing at that racetrack, or at least none that you really have to take into account. Very tight corners, and I think for street circuits probably translates as well as you can here to the Chicago street course. And so I don't think it's any surprise that Casey Kerwin, we know he was strong at Monza, and he feels as though he kind of threw away a win those couple of weeks ago that we were there. Definitely going to be very strong in this race, and certainly doing so, trying to chase down your top 3.
Not a surprise at all to see the defending champ doing this. That's the beauty of iRacing, right? You can go to these different tracks and challenge yourself. I was thinking about that when we were talking about Matt Busa, putting himself in this new environment, challenging yourself for the opportunity maybe to be at the championship for a live NASCAR race, just like you were talking about with Graham Boland, putting themselves in these different positions to challenge yourself and be better for it. Guy like Casey Kerwin racing at tracks like Long Beach, racing different cars in different series, street courses, preparing yourself for a track like this in a regular season race in this series. Anytime you can challenge yourself, the beauty of iRacing lets you put yourself in those positions, and they prove themselves to be better for it. And we're seeing that performance right now.
The call from Casey Kerwin's pit is he wants as much clean air as possible, and that team is monitoring the gap to Nick Ottinger and seeing if he's able to gain or lose time to him in traffic. Graham Boland going to make his way down to the pits from his spot that was running up inside the top 10, and you could see it on our couple of shots there for a couple of moments as that Parker White is approaching the tail end of the field. I believe it was Alan Bowes and a couple more that are just up the road, and you have to wonder, is anybody in your top 3 here going to take this opportunity to see, I have traffic ahead, I don't want to deal with it. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him make the hard right-hand turn on South Columbus Drive down to the pit area this time.
They're in the window. They've done about all they can to get as much free and clear track ahead of them. I would think it has to come now. It has to come soon, Blake. But now if you're Parker White, you're wondering, does everyone else just do the opposite of what I do? Is someone else going to jump in? If I go past pit road, the entrance, is someone going to jump in behind me? These are the games you're playing as the leader, trying to figure out how to keep yourself there. All the while, you're catching this traffic, which is only going to slow you down if you catch them at the wrong part of the racetrack. That's what's going to be interesting as we see some of the cars move over, Blake.
Yeah, I was about to say not going to be an issue for either of those drivers, and in fact, Alan Bowes is actually going to complete a pass off of those two drivers, pulling completely out of the way for your race leader. So we talked about the buildup. It doesn't seem as if that is going to be an issue. As we approach the halfway mark here at Chicago, it is still Parker White, Bobby Zielinski, and Steven Wilson, your top 3.
I need to try it first.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need, Makoni.
We now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at McConeySetupShop.com/subscriptions.
And remember, at McConey Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
In Chicago, we take sports seriously. After all, we've seen just about everything. A curse lifted, 6 cups hoisted, and a dynasty. But there's one thing we haven't seen until now. NASCAR. Right on the streets of Chicago. Sunday on NBC and Peacock.
eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. By Logitech G. Through design, engineering, and a love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And by Makoni Setup Shop. Makoni Setup Shop is the original iRacing setup shop and is trusted by real-world and virtual professionals to get the job done. Visit MakoniSetupShop.com to see why they are the official setup shop of eNASCAR and choose a subscription to save money. Makoni Setup Shop, our setups, your victories. 17 laps to go here from the streets of Chicago. It is still Parker White. Bobby Zielinski has lost a couple of car lengths over the last couple of laps here, and Steven Wilson has really started to make his way forward and could perhaps challenge here for the second position as they make their way to South Columbus Drive, or at least the back end of it, towards turn 6.
And one reason for that gap, Blake, is that Parker White not long ago, about one lap ago, ran his fastest lap of the race. So some of these cars only getting faster. No tire fall off. Any of that strategy, it just shows the chess game of when to make the pit stop is only getting more and more important. And I'm getting, frankly, I'm getting excited to wonder when this is going to happen, because if a move is going to happen, if a strategy move is going to happen, these pit stops upcoming are going to get more and more important, especially with the fact that some of these cars are getting faster. There's not much fall off. It's not like you're losing anything by staying out. So it's all a matter of when you make that call, if you can make a jump and have that benefit you on the racetrack.
You can see nobody in your top 13 has pit. Nick Ottinger did, but he is stuck back in traffic, and we're hearing, at least from the Casey Kerwin crew, that Kerwin is faster because of the lower fuel and the fact that he has cleaner air. Nick Ottinger stuck in traffic, so at least for now, the thinking is going to be, at least I believe in these top few, you're going to go about as long as you can, which I would imagine that's going to be about 6 or 7 laps, I believe, Alan. I mean, we saw drivers pitting as early as lap 9, so if the going is about 30 laps or so, could be about 6 or 7 laps, and we're hearing that most of these guys, they're going to take fuel only. They're not even going to bother putting on tires.
We haven't seen any drop off really at all. And again, as they're getting faster, maybe with the fuel load lightening a bit, but even before that, there was no drop off. So these tires has cost you more time in the pits, and this is all about that track position, getting in, getting out as fast as you can. That would be an interesting strategy call to just go gas and go, but that may get you the victory. And Parker White, that's what he's looking to do. He's just looking to keep Bobby Zielinski, Steven Wilson. They've been in his mirror the entire race. We are more than 20 laps into this race, and he can still see them in his rearview mirror. Even though he's had the lead the whole time, the pressure has been there the entire race.
I think if you're White, you really have to be focused on keeping that clean air. I think Zielinski or Wilson right now, if they were in that clean air, they probably have just slightly more pace, I would imagine, than what Parker White has up front. And, you know, I think something else coming into tonight, Alan, that really showcases how good these drivers are is, you know, obviously we run open setup just about every single track that we go to. This is one of the few tracks on the schedule. I believe the next one is going to be Pocono for the regular season finale that is going to be run utilizing a fixed setup. So all these teams, all the work they do throughout the week trying to tweak these cars and find speed, they didn't have to do that this week. It was all just about finding raw speed. And I think you look at the front of the field here, Alan, I know sometimes it's easy as a driver to kind of settle in and think, well, you know, that guy just, he has a faster setup, or that car's a little bit better right now. But if you look at the front of the field in this race versus other road courses that we've run, there's not much of a difference in terms of the names that we see that are kind of up here dominating.
No, and you know, obviously we love the team aspect of it, having open setups, having everyone weigh in and practice matter, but those fixed setups, what does that tell us? What is the only difference, Blake, when you have a fixed setup? It's the person holding the steering wheel. So for that talent to show itself, we're seeing it tonight. I think that should be appreciated every once in a while, especially at a track like this. We are seeing Parker White's accolades, his skills at a track like this, road course racing. You mentioned his rating earlier in the race. We are seeing that skill level show out with the Parker Whites, Bobby Zielinski's, Casey Kerwins of the world, Steven Wilson, who won on this track last year in the All-Star race. You make everything else equal, it's the drivers that make the difference.
That they are. Is see Donovan Strauss right now running in 13th. You can see Nick Ottinger, who has already pit at this point, but is kind of stuck between them. Any amount of fresh tires that he would have gotten had he taken them but of course he didn't. But nevertheless, you can see how much quicker he was up front, but back here in traffic, just not quite having the same luck. As you can see, Strauss wheeling and dealing right now as, well, he's got a busy week. He'll be at the Thursday Thunder a little bit later on in Atlanta Motor Speedway. So doing some double duty here as we take a look back at Jimmy Walls.
Always love hearing about double duty because some drivers have to do it on the same night, Blake. We know there are drivers that will be racing in real life on Tuesday nights, especially in the summer, and then jump over here and join the Coca-Cola series on the eNASCAR side. So there's so much going on between the bridge that iRacing has really helped a lot of these drivers build their careers here in the eNASCAR series and also on the big tracks in real life. And we see that crossover more and more. That's what I love learning about these series, that more drivers are getting the opportunities.
I think Caden Honeycutt was a great example of that. He was 11th earlier on. He was at Caraway Speedway today getting his car tuned up for the Cars Tour that will be running there tomorrow night. He'll get to compete against Kyle Larson, Jeremy Mayfield, and some of the best late model stock racers in the country. But he did that back at North Wilkesboro as well, was there all day long, drove back home, competed in the Darlington race that night. And here he is doing it once again, as Steven Wilson will be the first of your trio up front to finally make his way down into the pits. He'll be the third pit stall up here. Actually, no, he'll have the first pit stall because he was our pole sitter a little bit earlier on. Can't imagine it's probably going to be fuel only for Steven Wilson. And we'll see if what the response is going to be here from Zielinski or Parker White.
Quick on, quick off, and we can see him getting out there just before. Did he beat Nick Ottinger out? It looks like he will. Nick Ottinger had a big gap there on the racetrack, so now we have to wait and see. When does Parker White make his move? Bobby Zielinski getting a little lap traffic here, having to make his way around there. How much will that cost him on the racetrack, especially as we approach pit stops? But Steven Wilson made the chess move first. Look, he was sitting there in third, no clean air, wasn't making up much on the racetrack. It behooved him to make the move first to see what he could do, be the first of these guys to pit last, if you will, and see if that was his best way, maybe his only way to make up some of this track position. He was the first to make the move. What will these other two drivers do?
It's not going to be too much longer. At a certain point, they're going to have to pit because of the necessity of just needing fuel. They're going to run out at some point, but you can see no plans here as they continue down off of the final corner, turn 12, and head towards turn 1. Interesting pit entry here because of that kind of awkward 90-degree turn, and the pit entry kind of being at the very edge of where they start running up South Columbus Drive. So you have a pretty good indication based off of the line that they take into turn 12 if they're going to be pitting or not. So it'll certainly stick out to us. As you can see, Matt Busa, who we mentioned earlier for William Byron Esports, live in Chicago. He makes his way down into the pits. And, you know, shout out to William Byron Esports as well. They created the Denny Hamlin Bracket Challenge. I guess the William Byron Bracket Challenge here for iRacing. I was actually just filling that out before we went green. So shout out to William Byron Esports. They got some good prizes going. So check your brackets, folks, and look at the score and pile on and see if it's going good or if it's pretty much like anything I've picked this year, not so good.
Yeah, well, the matchups, they were so interesting because the tracks also factor in, right? I mean, at some tracks, you wouldn't pick Bobby Zielinski over, say, another driver. Or let's say Parker White. You wouldn't always put Parker White over another driver. But on a track like this, you look at the stats, you look at the ratings, obviously you want to put Parker White over. So I love the bracket challenge because the track and where they're racing factors so much into your decision making that I look forward to seeing how my bracket is doing after race one. We'll see how that's going, but the cream seems to be rising, and I picked a lot of favorites, Blake. I'm not going to lie.
Well, you know, that's why they're called favorites, right? Is and moving up in the top 5, this time it is Casey Kerwin who is going to pit with 11 laps to go, and I think we'll truly be able to see the difference from him to Nick Ottinger. And one of the other strong contenders out there, you just saw him for a moment, Garrett Lowe, having a great run up at the front of the field as well. And by the way, a nice little test run here for this broadcast tonight. The camera pack of the TV cameras that you see is a trial run for the camera map that NBC is building for later on in this week. So send us the positions and everything of what they'll be using to shoot the race on Sunday. And if they want to make any tweaks, they can do so here the next couple of days before they get going out there. So a lot of collaboration here amongst different members of the industry for this race.
And that's really been the name of the game for years now. To make this Chicago idea happen, it's been collaboration, it's been synergy, it's been iRacing out there scanning the track and creating it. We heard from Steve Myers in the Countdown to Green show, delivered by Wendy's. Some of those comments that we heard from Steve Myers, Blake, that this was the bumpiest track they'd ever scanned. Think about all the tracks everywhere around the world that they've scanned as Parker White makes his pit stop. The leader is in, Blake.
Parker White is in. I remember talking to Kevin Iannarelli about that as well, just the particular challenge it was getting this place scanned. You have to think with all the traffic that, is always going on in downtown Chicago, not exactly the easiest thing to scan this racetrack while there's pedestrians and everybody else on it. We'll take one more look. This is Vicente Salas further on back in the field. I believe this was him trying to get into the pits, saw it out of the corner of my eye when they were pitting, and just missed those barrels at the end of the pit. That is cutting it close.
Yeah, you don't know if that's driver error, if that's a late call-in on the crew's part. All these things you have to factor in, but we still have Bobby Zielinski, who needs to make his pit stop, Tucker Minter, Dylan Duval. Treacherous getting out there. That's half the challenge, is just getting on pit road. And notice where Parker White, he did come out in front of Steven Wilson. He did come out in front of Casey Kerwin, able to maintain that position.
So I think the biggest question now is Bobby Zielinski going to have a quicker pit in and pit out than what Parker White had. And I imagine with the traffic just in front of Bobby Zielinski, wouldn't be shocked if it would be this time by that he would come down pit road, one of the last to do it here in this race. But as we see, yep, he's going to take the hard right-hand turn. And Bobby Zielinski, can he hold the lead here as he crawls down to just a couple of miles an hour, at least what it has to feel like when you've been going through the streets of Chicago? This is Parker White. We'll see where he comes out.
Yeah, it's going to
exit here all the way down towards turn 1 in that blue line.
It's going to be all about that blend. Tucker Minter also was able to pit there, so we'll see where him and Zielinski come out. As Dylan Duval, it looked like maybe he was making the pits, but this is the race right here. Where does Bobby Zielinski come out? Will Parker White pass him here on the exit? This is going to be close.
It's going to be really close, and Bobby Zielinski got out ahead of Parker White. A perfect stop by that crew, and Bobby Zielinski able to jump Parker White here with 9 laps to go. A true change up front, and Parker White, who was trying to become the 63rd different winner in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, will have his work cut out for him here over the next couple laps to try and chase him down. Now, Bobby slightly on cold tires, probably. I mean, he stopped in his pit stall. He did not take tires. But we'll see if Parker White has anything for him.
But we heard it on the radio, and you reported from the pits, Blake, that Bobby Zielinski said, if I get clean air, I'd be so much faster. Those laps that he was able to do without Parker White in front of him, sounds like he was telling the truth, because he was able to get just that little bit of a gap that gave him an advantage going into the pits, and he was able to get a clean pit stop and get out of there. As we see Casey Kerwin now still trying to maintain his position. He's back there in 5th. He's trying to get up there again. He was one of the earlier cars to pit.
Again, impressed with Tucker Minter, and I believe Minter actually passed these cars through that pit cycle. So he's someone else that was able to make the jump through going through the pit lane. You can see where everybody has cycled out, and this is where we talked about margin of error coming into tonight, Alan, how close everything is. We talked about Nick Ottinger. Oh, he's losing time in traffic. All this is going on. And look at how far apart they come out. I mean, they're 3/4 tenths apart from one another. Everybody here just so close, so competitive. As you can see, Brandon McKissick's coming out, and it's a little kiss there from Garrett Lowe.
Still so much on the line here. Tucker Minter has just been so impressive this year with the wins already. Look where he is now, 4th place in front of Casey Kerwin, running amongst the best on a street course. You've seen a lot of these seasons. You've seen a lot of rookie Blake. Put Tucker Minter's season into perspective.
I mean, it's incredible what he's done. I mean, if you take the small sample size, he's the winningest driver in terms of percentage in series history. Of course, now he's only run 10 races, but he's won 2 of them. And I talked about it in Monza. I never really pictured Tucker Minter as being this incredible road course talent when he came into the series, but it doesn't matter. Any car, any track, he has had speed and has shown the acumen to be able to get the job done. So incredible rookie campaign for Tucker Minter. And we just have not seen a rookie class come in here, Alan, with about 4 or 5 drivers that have really made their presence felt this early on, and perhaps nobody better right now than Tucker Minter. Of course, his teammate, we talked about Team Dillon Esports and how dominant they've been in terms of the team standings. I mean, Jordy Lopez Jr. having a great night so far in the 8th spot.
Yeah, and they look at the team aspect of it. There's a lot of pride there. There's the team standings, the team championship. You can see the live point standing there as we look toward that cut line. 31 points ahead right now is what the cut line is. And Bobby Zielinski, if he would get that 3rd win of the year, if he were able to hang on here, and not too much jumbling up the points quite yet, but still, after this race, there'd be 3 more. But win and in, and then, shoot yourself toward the championship. But seeing the live point standings is something cool to look at.
Well, and I wonder here, Alan, if you're Parker White, you know that Bobby Zielinski has 2 wins. He knows his fate. He's going to be fighting for a championship later on this year. If you're close enough on the last lap, I mean, we know that these drivers will do just about anything to try and win. Would Parker White, I wouldn't go so far as saying playing dirty, but would you do anything it took to try and win a race when the opportunity to make the playoffs is directly in front of you?
Look, Tony Stewart will take out his grandmother for a win. Blake McCandless will take out iRacing Steve Meyer for a win. I mean, it has to happen, right? I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get that victory. Another good shot of Matt Busa again live from Navy Pier in Chicago right now tonight. But Blake, you have to imagine the possibility is there. When you need a win, when a win secures your playoff life, you don't want anything left up to chance if you're Parker White. Right now, it seems like you're good in the point standing, but a win all but secures your spot. If that opportunity is there on the last lap, I want some aggression.
We'll see if that's what we know, at least in the recent past. That's kind of what we've seen up at the front. Of course, saw a lot said about last week in the finish with Garrett Maines out on old tires, some of the contact made with he and Jordy Lopez, and then, of course, he and Michael Conti down to the line, beating and banging, and Lopez gets his maiden eNASCAR win. This is Matt Busa just behind him, another accomplished road course racer in his own right. Dylan Alt riding now in 13th, and even a couple of seconds back, you can see him on the edge of your frame there. That is Garrett Maines, FTR Excel. Came oh so close to winning at Worldwide Technology Raceway just 2 weeks ago.
Great in-car here from Dylan Alt. You can hear just how much they have to get on the brake, how slow they have to go after these high-speed straights. Make another quick right turn, and you're making that left around the corner there as the speed picks up. Swing back to the right, another long straightaway as you're getting ready for another long straightaway after this tight turn. Watch how narrow it gets. Good pass there, a little bump and run there from Dylan Alt. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's what happened. We'll see if Busa responds to it here through turn 12, but perhaps can't get a shot at him. But I think, again, that may be something that we see on the last lap when you look at your top 2, because Parker White has run down Bobby Zielinski, and Steven Wilson is even starting to work his way up here. So this race is not done yet, folks. Under half a second now separating your top 2. And again, Alan, when we talk about you just have to be close enough to have a shot on the last lap, and it'll be in their hands at that point. But if he has a chance within a car length or so, wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of stock car racing here, some short track style racing here on the streets of Chicago.
It's getting closer and closer, and let's not forget the All-Star race here last year, Blake. It came down to a race like this. It came down to those final few laps. It came down to aggression. Bobby Z in position, not able to get that win. Sort of a role reversal here, being the leader, being the one who is at point right now and worried about the aggression behind him. That's Steven Wilson was in that position last year, and it was such a close race, such an aggressive race last year. Again, being in the All-Star race, this is with points on the line. This is with potential playoff spot on the line. Steven Wilson needs a win. Parker White needs a win. What will they do to get it?
I think another thing that you may have to consider is how close these drivers are kind of running it on fuel. You think about some of the next-gen races we've seen at super speedways this year where you're trying to minimize the amount of fuel that you're adding. Well, that was the case in this race with nobody taking tires. It was all about how little fuel you can add. And with the fact that Zielinski got out in front, had a quicker pit stop than Parker White, perhaps it's just a gallon or so or 2 gallons of fuel that made the difference in just those tenths of a second on a pit stop. So I don't imagine these teams would miscalculate it that bad. But, you know, I think that's something that we've made. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a driver or two throughout the field that perhaps makes that error and perhaps undershoots it on fuel because, again, every just tenth of a second you spend on pit road makes such a big difference.
I love this camera shot, watching the eyes of both these drivers. Bobby Zielinski in first, Parker White in second. We know they have communication. We know they have their monitors. We know they have to concentrate on these tight turns. But every once in a while, Blake, I'm watching the eyes of Bobby Zielinski look back to see just how close is he. How close is Parker White? Is he getting closer? These are the times I don't envy being the leader, only because you have to look out the windshield, but you're also paying attention to that rearview mirror, wondering who's behind you, if they're getting closer. It's times like these where you don't know what the right thing to do. If you're on team communications, what are you telling your driver? Just focus out front, focus on the block and back. This is when it gets down to crunch time.
I think that's really all you can do at this point if you're in the Bobby Zielinski camp, but if you're Parker White, I think it's pretty easy to motivate your driver. He's right there. Go get him. And we'll see if he's able to do that. Just 3 more trips around the Chicago street course here for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Ottinger starting to lose touch here with your top 5 as he and Garrett Lowe have a little bit of a battle here going on for the 6th spot.
Good racings, good positions here. We saw Garrett Lowe earlier with that in-car shot as he is chasing down Nick Ottinger. There are a little bit of change, you know, after the pit cycle sequence of who did what and when. Now we're seeing some of that play out here. Not many spots on the line for some of these drivers with only 3 laps to go, but you want to get every single one you can. And again, you'll get aggressive for that win if you're second trying to get first. I wouldn't put it past any of these guys getting aggressive for, you know, the 6th place spot, what have you, because when it's right there in front of you and you feel like it would just take a little bumper to get them out of the way, this is when it starts to get aggressive. Aggression we haven't seen throughout the race quite yet.
We'll see if we see it here. Just a couple laps remaining here at Chicago. Again, this is the battle for about 6th. But our eyes will turn here the last couple of laps to the battle for the top spot. Bobby Zielinski and Parker White. You can see that gap has stayed relatively stable here for the last half a lap or so. So Parker White hasn't lost any time to Bobby Zielinski here with 2 laps to go. And you can see it right there, just mere inches. As Zielinski may have scraped the wall, that may have provided the opportunity that White needs here to get a big run with some draft down South Columbus Drive.
Some of the highest speeds on the racetrack here. Get hard on the brakes. Bobby Zielinski still playing defense, not having too much of a challenge there from Parker White, so able to get a little bit of a gap as they come down this hill. We know how bumpy it is as we make this hard right-hand turn. Get on the gas once again to that skinny, narrow part on the track that we're approaching here.
Just 15 more corners for Bobby Zielinski to execute perfectly, and Parker White is going to have to outdo him. You can see White sliding and scraping the wall, making up time. It's down to about a car length or so as they cross the bridge. They'll take the right-hand turn to turn 12. White flag in the air. Is it Zielinski, Parker White, or Steven Wilson that goes to victory lane here in Chicago? One more trip to settle it.
A long straightaway here, hot on the gas, and then you get hard on the brake. It's just a wonder, will Parker White get to Bobby Zielinski first, or will Steven Wilson get to Parker White first? That can make a difference about how this lap goes for Bobby Zielinski.
You can see a little bit of a lockup there for Zielinski as he scraped some of the Blue Cross Shield logos off of the concrete wall. Able to get away, though, through 3, and now they look forward to turn 4, and White is going to have to get a perfect run here off of turn 4 to have a shot at Zielinski. Zielinski sliding off the corner, but he'll continue to pull away.
This is that long straightaway, maybe the best passing opportunity left if you can outbrake somebody. I don't think Parker White is close enough as they make this left-hand turn. Gets a little closer, but not close enough to take advantage.
He maybe only has 1 or 2 more shots to do it. We'll see if he does it here in turn 7. Zielinski able to get a good exit. Now through East Congress Plaza Drive, a big bump in the middle of this sweeping left-hander. 2 car lengths separate your top 2. This may be White's last shot to do it. He's going to send it in here to turn 11 as he's now within a car length. Do we see a move here in turn 12? Final time here on the streets of Chicago, but he's not going to be able to get there. And Bobby Zalinski is going to win for the 3rd time this year.
What a victory for Bobby Z, as we still got some positions playing out here. Michael Conti, Graham Bolt racing here at the end of this, trying to get, close. Maybe a little contact there as we race toward the finish.
Perhaps a little bit, as Michael Conti trying to hold on to his spot in the top 10, and he is going to be able to do it over Graham Boland, Dylan Duval, Dylan Alt, as well as the Matt Busa machine that was directly behind them. Some more battling here. This is Corey Vincent. We talked about Pittsburgh Knights and all that was going on pre-race with those 2 drivers and what they're fighting for this year, fighting for every position here down to the very end.
What a race. Look forward to talking to Bobby Zalinski as he gets to kind of take it in as the remaining cars hit the checkered flag. Type of racing we get here on a street course. They get a little strung out, but plenty of positions still in pride on the line here. Every one of these positions counts, especially when we think about relegation. But yeah, what a race for Bobby Zalinski. Being patient, losing it at the front of the race, right? Not getting the lead and having to take so many laps, just wondering and being patient as he rode behind Parker White, and then playing the pit strategy just perfect.
That he does, and perhaps the hardest that he has had to fight for any of his road course wins in this series. It is the 14th time in his eNASCAR career that Bobby Zalinski will be heading to victory lane. He sits 5th all time, and now within just 1 race of Michael Conti, who sits 4th with 15 career wins. But right-hand turn out of South Columbus Drive, and Bobby Zalinski going to try to find some space to do a burnout here, as this is your Coca-Cola winning moment. Well, and that's all he's going to do. He doesn't have enough gas to do a burnout. He ran out.
Talk about playing it perfectly.
And, that's probably what made the difference. He got out by about 1/10 of a second, and that's going to be the Coca-Cola move of the race as he times it perfectly, gets a miraculous exit. I mean, I don't think people realize how hard that exit is with the tire barrier just right there. He times it perfect and is able to hold off Parker White, who, again, you just have to feel for Parker White. He had his first career win and a shot in the playoffs in his grasp, and it is ripped from him by that VRS Toyota crew. Great job by Bobby Zalinski and his team to time it just right to be able to get out front. But, Alan, we're going to turn things over to you as you have caught up with our 3rd-time winner here in 2023. Bobby Zalinski gets it done on the streets of Chicago.
Bobby Zalinski, the winner tonight. Let's start off with the winning move, where it happened in the pits, the decision to pit when, how much fuel to take. How does that all play out as you're trying to catch Parker White?
Man, I'm just so stoked for the guys in my box and my team, Coanda, Joe Gibbs Racing, VRS, Zach Campbell and Andrew Fayash were spotting me, and they were giving me all the info I needed for fuel stuff and gaps and stuff like that. My hair's all messed up. Who cares? So I feel like one of the moves of the race was turn 1. I got a good start, and I just sent it, and I wanted to get both of them, but I only got Steven, and I got Parker the lead. So from there, I'm like, well, I feel like I have pace on Parker, but he has oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to put this on, my bad. So I felt like I had more pace, but there's a lot of dirty air, and I kind of hurt my front tires that whole first run before we pitted, just trying to save fuel and stay with him. But once he pitted, and I kind of messed up when he pitted, I was going to pit, so I slowed down and I lost some time. But yeah, so like he pit, and I'm just like, I'm going. I get updates that he might be stuck behind Duval, and I know I'm going to take less fuel than him because I've been saving fuel. And man, when I came out in the lead, I was like, holy crap, we did it. We like put this plan together from lap 1. Oh my God, I was so stoked to win that. That's crazy.
You seem out of breath. The winning will do that to you, but describe the effort tonight on a track like the Chicago Street Course. We know how bumpy it is. We know how tough and narrow it can be. What is it like as a driver to win this race? What does it take?
Oh, it's so special because like you don't have room for error. You have to be right against the walls to be the fastest. And part of what I messed up on today was qualifying with that. Just didn't get the right lap in, so I had to do something. It feels really special to win here because I think for sure this is the toughest road course you could go to in NASCAR just because of the bumpy nature of the track. It's like a real driver's challenge, and it was interesting to have fixed setup for this race as well. And shout out to Parker and Steve. Like we kind of checked out on the field, and we were in a league of our own, and any of us deserving winners. So I can't believe I came out on top of that from starting third.
Well, believe it. Fixed setup. The driver is the one that makes the difference. You did that tonight. Bobby Zielinski, win number 3 on the year, the Chicago Street Course winner. Congratulations. Let's go to second place. Parker White. What a race. So many laps led for you, Parker. What made the difference tonight? The pit sequence is where you lost the lead. Is there something that could have been done different?
I don't really think so. Bobby was just able to save so much fuel behind me, and I think he took like 2 gallons less than me on the stop. I could be wrong on that, but he said that he was saving fuel, and I was just full push out front, just trying to set down the best laps I could, and felt like I did a really good job out there out front, and I led the most laps, obviously, and I definitely didn't expect to be leading into turn 2, so that was definitely something on lap 1, but to finish P2 after leading the most laps, that's really good for me.
Yeah, this whole race changed in that first corner because you did get maybe the restart, one of the best restarts of the year. What was that like? What gave you that advantage early on in the race?
Mostly just Bobby putting it 3 wide into turn 1 because Steven backed out of it. And then I had the inside for turn 2, and I was able to just clear Bobby. Then from there, just set sail and lead the most laps until pit stops.
Yeah, lessons learned. Your time's coming, young man. So we'll see the next time you can get that checkered flag. But second place for Parker White tonight at the Chicago Street Course, Blake. Oh, we'll talk with Steven Wilson as well before we throw it back to Blake. Steven, you know all about winning at the Chicago Street Course. You did it last year in the All-Star race. You started from the pole, but I know it wasn't the start of the race you wanted. What happened on the start of the race?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just shifted to second and had some spinning of the tires, and I don't know what it is with me, but I know what Bobby's going to do, and I don't turn left enough to block it. So just, should have won the race. I feel like I had pretty good pace behind him, but you can't pass in dirty air. So what can you do?
Yeah, can you describe that challenge as a driver? Because once you were in third, it was hard no matter really seemingly how fast your car was. Pit strategy, was that able to make a difference? How tough was it once you got to third?
Yeah, it's pretty much, we were all in the same setup this race, so it was pretty much just impossible with how good Parker and Bobby are on road courses to get back around them. So just choked the start, and really that was the end of it.
Yeah, tough night from the start, but Steven Wilson, top 3. Nothing, not a bad night, but I know you wanted better. But next time, we'll see you out there. Steven Wilson, third place tonight at the Chicago Street Course, Blake.
As your top 3, again, we appreciate them taking the time to chat with us as we take a look at our full field results here. Parker White, Steven Wilson obviously complete your top 3. Tucker Minter stays in front of Casey Kerwin to round out the top 5. And a couple of William Byron Esports machines will round out your top 10.
11th, Dylan Duvall, Dylan Alt, Matt Busa, live from Chicago tonight, comes home 13th. As we go down a little further, Zach Novak in 20 rounds out the top 20.
You see some solid runs back here. Caden Honeycutt, Colin Bowden able to make up a couple of spots. Unfortunately for Keegan Leahy in my pick, wasn't quite able to overcome too much back there, starting on row 18. Makes his way up to the top 25. See the rounding it out, and a couple of cars that had some issues, had some damage, that weren't able to see the end of this one. Derek Justice, Derek Bordeaux, Malik Ray, Ryan Luza, and Joey Brown for a field that was 40 cars strong to end the night, but it is all about Bobby Zielinski winning for the third time this year. However, a couple of weeks forward, we'll take a look back at Nashville Super Speedway. Not the first time we've been here in this series, but Alan, I know these next-gen cars put on a pretty good show. The NASCAR Cup Series, think the same could be said here when we get going in a couple weeks' time.
Yeah, looking forward to the race here in Nashville. Always fun. We saw it in real life in the Cup Series just a few days ago and put on a great race, 3-wide racing, especially after the restarts. I hope we see some of that in the eNASCAR Series on July 11th.
We'll see that indeed when we move forward to the Music City. So that's going to do it for us here from the streets of Chicago. On behalf of all of our partners here at iRacing, we thank you and appreciate you watching our coverage of the 2023 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. We want to bid you farewell and, of course, tune in this weekend to NBC, USA, and Peacock for the NASCAR Xfinity Series and NASCAR Cup Series live from the streets of Chicago. But until next time, for Alan Cavana, I'm Blake McCandless saying so long from Chicago. We bid you farewell and congratulations to tonight's winner, Bobby Zielinski.